ahead and get started. My name is Leeland Anderson. I'm the Assistant Principal of Distance Education at American College School. And I work there in the Library Learning Program as the director of that program. We built a family school. And, that's a one-room schoolhouse approach to teaching writing. And that's writing and also history, literature, math. Not math. History, literature, art, music, geography, and science. And today, I've been invited to give this presentation on teaching writing to your children. And so my hope for you is that at the end of this hour, you will have a very clear idea of how you can teach almost any kind of writing to your children. Okay? And if I've succeeded, you'll go out the store saying, oh, now I know how to teach my child various forms of writing. And we're going to do it using a couple of examples, including one from Benjamin Franklin. But to start, I'd like to ask you a question. I'd like to like to borrow some shoes. Can I borrow one of your shoes? One of my shoes. I know that's kind of shocking, right? Taking off our shoes, and hopefully I'll take off one of mine, that'll make Phil better, right? Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to actually kind of one of your students. Sure. That will give you something to remember and talk about. So the idea here is a quick question about what makes a shoe a shoe. And I'm going to give you a few exhibits. So here's exhibit A. Right, take a look, observe it carefully. What is in this shoe that makes it a shoe? Okay. Here's exhibit B. Very different from exhibit A. What makes these shoes? You both recognize them as shoes. Okay? You all recognize both of these shoes. Okay, what makes this a shoe? Okay, and we'll introduce two terms now. One is the term obligatory. Anyone tell me what obligatory means?
Has to be.
Has to be, right? It's obligated to be there. It's tied right into it. Lig is from ligare, the Latin word which means tied. It has this idea of the action of being tied to something. At is the action, ori is the qualities of the action of being tied to something. Okay? Obligatory. It must be there. And the other is the word optional, which you all know. What's an option? What's optional? Right, choices. Yeah. Okay. So you've got obligatory and optional elements here. What would you say is an obligatory element of a shoe? Okay? So you must, if you're going to call something a shoe, you have to have a sole. And what is a sole?
Bottom.
Yeah, it's the bottom, right? It's something that goes between your foot and the ground, right? Okay? Have you seen different options of what soles can be like? This looks like it's some kind of cork sole, right? Or at least it's decorated like cork. Right? Okay, so you've got a sole. Anything else you need to have a shoe be a shoe? It's obligatory.
A way for it to stay on your foot.
Good. A way for it to stay on your foot, right? Way for it to stay on your foot. Anything else? You call it a shoe?
I'd say comfort, but that's optional.
Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah, now let's go to some options. So you have just been my sleuths here, and you've decided that if something's going to be a shoe, obligatory, it is obligatory that it have a sole and some way to attach it to your foot, right? An attaching mechanism or structure of some kind. What are some options then? In shoes. Right, how comfortable they are, right? What is it made out of? Okay?
Amount of protection.
Right, amount of protection, protection factor.
Color and design.
What's that?
Color and design.
Design, yeah, so color. Maybe even, what are some ways you can attach a sole to your foot?
Zippers.
Buckles, zippers, laces, Velcro. You know, maybe even, what's that?
I was just thinking ankle strap.
Yeah, in some cases maybe it's just snug fitting, but somehow it stays on your foot. So those are all options, right? Okay, so you've got this idea of obligatory and optional down pretty well. Can we do that with the cover? Well, so now what we're going to do is we're going to read an essay, which I think you'll enjoy. We're going to read 2 essays. Okay? And before I do this, maybe I'll give you just one more example from the writing room. Have any of you had to, do any of you like ABC books? Yeah, some of you are smiling. You all know what an ABC book is, right? Have you, so you've got the ABC books, like ABC's about animals. A is for aardvark. B is for bear. C is for, cat, right, or something like that. And there's always, if you're going to have an ABC book, what must you have? What's obligatory?
The alphabet.
An alphabet. You got to follow the alphabet, right? You got to have at least 26 pages. So we're the 26 letters of the English alphabet. What else do you have to have?
You have to, if you're doing animals, you have to come up with something, an animal that goes with X, or,
Okay.
Some of the
Yeah.
uncommon letters.
Okay, so you've got to have some word or phrase or concept attached to every single letter of the alphabet. What are the options with alphabet books? You want to write an alphabet book? Yes.
Themes,
Themes. Can you give me some examples?
animals,
Animals. Yep. Colors. Maybe you could do 26 colors. I don't know. Right? Animals. What's that? Foods. Yeah, you could write an alphabet book on foods, on animals. My wife did one on one of our sons. Benjamin. A is for adorable. B is for Benjamin. C is for cute. D is for whatever it is. Created this alphabet book for my son. Right? And relatively simple. Often they have pictures, right? A picture associated. That you might say is obligatory, perhaps. Could you write it? What do you do, sir, for work? You're a nurse. Could you write an ABC book on nursing? You could, right? C is for catheter. D is for... You could. 26 topics from nursing, and that's an option. Obligatory, if you want to call it an ABC book, is it has to go from A to Z. Can you do it in a different order? No, probably not, right? You probably have to start with A and then with Z. So that's the obligatory. Okay. How about one more genre? We call these genres different kinds of writing. What about obituaries? Do you all know how to write an obituary? What's obligatory if you're going to write an obituary? And I hope you don't have to do this anytime soon. Okay.
Somebody has to have died.
Somebody who died, their name, probably some dates, right? The date they died, probably the date they were born. Anything else? Yeah, at least that. That's probably obligatory. But optional then begins to be, who do you include? How much do you include about what they did in their life? Just the other day I read a very short obituary. I was actually surprised because oftentimes they include all of your family members, who they're survived by, right? Maybe just a little bit about their career, just a tiny bit, right? But I saw one that was very, very short. And then, of course, in the olden days, my daughter does indexing, and she loves obituaries because, by the way, that's the best and easiest way to get lots of names, because they stack up lots of names in these obituaries. And so, if you're doing competitions and you want numbers of names, so that's not the best reason to do indexing. You go to the obituaries, so you can rack up numbers fast. Okay? And they used to be shorter. They used to be shorter than they are now. But they always have names, who died, right? Where they're going to be interred, and when the burial or the viewing is going to be. Those are obligatory. Optional, how much more detail, right? Who the person is. You don't really have the options on that, right? Okay, so what we're going to do today is just to help you see that not only can you do this with obituaries and ABC books and shoes, but also you can do it with essays. And when you say the word essay, what happens in your throat? Do you ever get a lump in your throat? Or in your stomach? Does your stomach do a flip? Or does your blood your blood pressure rises or something? The word essay is a scary word for a lot of people because actually, you can probably divide writing into lots of different forms of essays, right? There's poetry, and that's not really an essay. And you can do narratives, and maybe narratives are essays, right? But some large portion of writing has to do with essays, okay? And there are actually lots of subsets of essays. So let's call all of these essays. And today, I'm going to give you this really great essay, 2 essays, that I call, I'm not going to even tell you what it's called. I just want you to read it because you're going to be my sleuths again, and you're going to try to figure out, after reading two examples, one from Benjamin Franklin called Remarks Concerning the Savages of North America. You're going to read it out loud with the neighbor. It'll take you about 15 minutes to get through it. Then I'm going to give you a cute short one. It'll take you about 3 minutes called A Room Without a View by Todd Condy in 2003. It was BYU students in their closing essay in BYU Magazine. You'll read those two essays. And just like you've looked for obligatory and optional elements in shoes and ABC books and obituaries, I want you to look for obligatory elements or patterns, without me telling you what we call these essays, between these two essays, okay? So I'm not going to give you this one until you've all had a chance to read the Remarks Concerning the Savages of North America. So your choice here right now is you can read it silently if you want. I'd recommend taking turns, and we just have a little buzz session here where you all, with your neighbor, read it out loud. And you got to hustle. So let's say if we give you 15 minutes, you'll get through it. You're going to love this essay. It's just really cute, okay? So ready? 15 minutes. What are you doing? Reading this essay with a buddy, and you're going to look for patterns in the next essay. Okay? So notice what you see. Ready? Begin. 15 minutes. Read out loud. Thank you. Appreciate that.
keep their memories, they have no license, and communicating to the children, they are the records of their teachers are not the journalists, communications and treaties are like years back, which we can compare with our rights, and how we exact. He that will speak rises, rest observed without silence. He has finished and sits down, finishing by formal literature, that he has admitted it to begin to say. Has anything to add, we rise again and do their work. To interrupt another, even in common personality, to rectify how different this is from the conduct of polite British household. For scarcely a task without some fashion that makes the speaker force you when you different from the conversation, like where but you cannot write it, straighten the rest, observe well the house, study the exchange, and sits down to he never saw the as a million
And it is indeed happy very much obliged by your in the beginning,
such as the fall of our first parents, the coming of Christ Jr. and his miracles when he had finished an Indian orator stood up to make me. What you have told us, he says, is all very good. It is indeed bad to eat apples. It is better to eat than all in cider. We are much obliged by your kindness so far. Tell us this thing, teacher. In return, I will tell you some of those matters in the beginning, our fathers had all the flesh of animals to subsist on, and if their hunting was unsuccessful, they were starving. Two of our young preachers, having heard the deer, we did fight their reports to see us and started having assembled the sheep.
what you tell me they have not you say the when any of them people have Therefore, as soon as they arrive at the near and stop at two old men and three come out. There isn't every you're there
When they decided to provide it, this they esteemed instruction of one something that we have as much curiosity as children encouraged our children to wish for opportunity. Hide ourselves in our bushes or to pass and never exert ourselves as we constantly cultivate the memories where there are rights as they round it down
same hospitality and then nationalized in 06 going through the
what you tell me are your favorite. There is in every religion my brothers your friends have not done their house they have not strangers are well instructed to the rules of common sense the laws that are each who understands the strangers are
I tell you, compared to many years since they had seen Conrad first called it. Said his first continuous. Conrad, he lived long among the Lord, and something of their custom. I had been sometimes helping him, once in 17 to shut up their shop. He said, "Go all in the great house. Tell me, what is your business for? What do they do about it? They meant to hear and learn good things. I do not doubt this. I told you the same, but I doubt the truth of what you said. I went lately to Albany, saw my business, if I can look at you know, I use generally but I was a little inclined to however, I felt for see, did not give me anything for sure. It says here, I cannot talk on business. This is the day when I meet him. And I'm glad. So I thought to myself, you cannot do any business in me, and may as well go to meet him. So I went there's took a man and wife, and began to walk very angry. I did not understand this. My man was angry and scheming. So I went out, sat down in the house, struck fire, and lit my pipe. I thought the man had been beaten, and suspected it might be the but when they came in, I asked them, well, I hope you agreed to get more than no, it says I cannot get more than 3 strokes and 6 months. I then spoke to the other. We all sang the same song. 3 and 6 months. 3 and 6 months. This made it clear to me that my suspicion was right. And that whatever they pretended to be a good thing, the real purpose was so like cheating me. Consider but a little compromise, and you must be a mighty enemy. They met so often that we didn't live but they are still ignorant. You know our problem. The white men in one of our countries. We were treated as I can choose. We try him if he is right. We harm him if he is right. We give him meat. We make his thirst. We spread but if I go into White House and ask for pictures, they say, where's your money? And if I have none, they say, get out from me and doctor. You see, they have not yet learned this little bit. We need them, we need them. Their mothers got them so. And therefore, it's impossible. Their meeting should be if they see anything. Or have any such effect. They only take the part of cheating of aliens.
Consider but a little fun then, and you must be of my opinion. They met so often to learn good things, certainly the learners of the more this time. They are still ignorant. You know our practice, the white man traveling through our country enters from our country, where we all treat him like we do. We drive him up to his way, warm him up in his boat, then he may allay his thirst, and we spread solid truth to rest his wishes. We demand nothing in return. But if I go into a white man's house at Albany to ask for rituals and things, they say, where's your money? And if I have none, they say, get out of this yard. You see, they have not yet learned those primitive things that we need no meaning to instruct them. How is our mothers taught such institutions? Therefore, if they must be meaning or have any such effect, they are only to strive to achieve what is it to strive to do.
Okay, one more minute, finish up, you can. Okay, good morning, or pause for a moment. I'm passing out to you the second essay. And by way of reminder, there is a pattern that I hope you may notice, something similar, something in common here, because, well, that's what we're going to discuss. So I'll give you about 5 minutes more now to read this essay, and then with your neighbor, if you could discuss what you think is what kind of essay this is, but before you label it, just say the same kind of essay, then what is obligatory, meaning what must be there and what's kind of optional, okay? So read the essay, it'll take you 3 or 4 minutes, then spend a minute or two talking about what's obligatory and what's optional if they're the same kind of essay. If you need more time, put up on your fingers how many more minutes you estimate you need. Okay, 1. And for those of you who need 2 minutes, maybe some of you, those who are finished, again, you're discussing, is there a pattern? Are these similar? And if they are similar, you know, what are, especially patterns, not so much in content, but in form, okay? What would be obligatory if you were going to write another essay to kind of fit in the family, so to speak? And what was the option? Okay, 30 more seconds to finish up your thoughts. 30 seconds. Okay, in 30 seconds. Let's discuss what you found. Okay? First of all, did you like these essays?
Yeah.
Kind of interesting, right? What was the general thrust, would you say, of the Benjamin Franklin essay? 3 pages.
For us to
What was he
see,
saying in a sentence or two?
to see things differently
About what?
about the Indians.
Okay, see things differently about the Indians, right? Great. Anyone want to add to that?
I think just to broaden that, just a cultural difference between two polar opposite cultures that coexist.
Great. Yeah, to see things differently. One more comment.
Just about not judging, you know, we
Right.
kind of went.
Right, savages we call them because their customs are different from ours, he says, right? Something to that effect. But then he goes on to do something.
Oh, no, I was just gonna say perspective.
Yeah, perspective. Okay, how about the second essay? What was the second essay about? In a sentence or two.
Same things.
Perspective, okay, about basement offices, right? So say it, someone put it in, what's his thesis statement? If I had to say, what's this about? Sorry, you can't look. Test.
Have it underlined.
What's it about? Oh, what is it?
It says, there is nothing inherently wrong with the deep and profound.
Okay, nothing inherently wrong with the deep and profound, right? Okay, so,
Which, by the way, is in the second paragraph, so it just doesn't apply to paragraph essay.
okay, so, good. I'm glad you noticed that, right?
And
This is
neither
not,
is his.
neither of these are 5 paragraphs.
No, they're not.
Were they good though?
Well, they're better than 5 paragraph essays.
Okay, good. They're not so formulaic as a 5-paragraph essay, right? Okay, so let's talk now about what you noticed that was obligatory. And I'm going to give you a name here in a minute, but what do you think was obligatory between these two? Yeah,
They both gave their personal experience.
okay, personal experience.
And
Okay?
they had to lure the audience in.
Okay.
It's obligatory to lure us in, or we don't want to read anymore.
Lure you in, how did they do that?
They used literary devices, both of them did.
Okay.
I think
Literary
assuming that
devices.
their audience has a preconceived notion.
Okay, preconceived notion. Is that true of both?
Challenge, yeah, that's good.
Preconceived notion is challenged. Yeah, I like that. Any other things that were common to both, that if you wanted to write one to fit in?
Contrast.
Examples.
Contrasts, examples?
They both make arguments to get you to get rid of your preconceived notion.
Specifics. They offer specifics arguments.
Yeah, specific arguments to get you to change your preconceived notion, right? So in some ways that seemed to be the intent here, right? The purpose was to change your notion.
They didn't like make a statement about things. They showed it to you.
Okay, great.
They showed it to you in a story.
Okay, showed you in kind of at least a descriptive kind of panoramic view or a story, right? Showed, not tell, right? Not just tell. Show, not tell. Okay, that's good. Anything else you want to add to that? Personal experience. They're speaking from personal experience. They lure you in using some kinds of literary devices, preconceived notions, and that's challenged. So the purpose is maybe to change your notion. Contrasting the examples. What else did you say that I didn't put up? It's important here. Okay, good. Any options? Length? Yeah, you notice they aren't the exact same length. Length, is that usually an option in writing? Yeah, it usually is, right? Length, what else?
So the Franklin, he also used like secondhand stories.
Secondhand stories. Secondhand versus firsthand, and probably the BYU guy was just literally going downstairs in the HVAC and in the Whitso building and looking at those aquariums and looking at those practice rooms. And so that was secondhand versus firsthand. Good. So when you're saying your personal experience, firsthand, excellent. What else?
They weren't dealing with the same preconceived notions.
Yeah, different notions, right? Different stereotypes or different notions or topics. Great. Okay. Good. Any other options? Okay, so let's think of a couple of more examples then. Tell me how you would write this kind of essay, and I'm just going to tell you, some people have looked at and done exactly this. Have you read essays like this before? I can tell you of one I just read last week. My sister forwarded me this letter from a Lutheran minister about Mormonism. And I think the Lutheran minister had converted after 30 years, is what it said in the footnote out at the very end. But he said something like, you might kind of have this preconceived Mormonism and Lutheranism is not compatible. The Lutheran doctrine and Mormon doctrine is not compatible. And he listed a few examples of preconceived notions. But in reality, I found, right, that they are very, very similar. And then he goes after various doctrines and examples from the Book of Mormon that exactly, and he said the Book of Mormon supports Lutheran doctrine, Lutheran ideas, okay? That was very much within this category. Okay? Another one about spiders. Who likes spiders? Yeah, what's our preconceived notion of spiders?
They're gooey.
But I've read these essays about spiders actually have lots of good uses. What do? They're garbage men that go clean up all the other dead insects. And they're, what else do they do that's really helpful? Or tarantulas that have this, we have this preconceived notion because of scary movies or traditions, Halloween or something. But in reality, only a certain small portion are poisonous. And even many of those are scaredy cats, these kinds of things. And of course, we still need to be cautious. I'm not trying to say we can't be cautious, but challenging that notion that all spiders or all snakes are, right? Okay, very good. Do you know what these essays are called? Now they're persuasive mode. Why don't we come up with the name? What's the name?
They're persuasive, that's it.
They are persuasive, but some people would say that there are even subcategories of persuasive essays. You can write a persuasive letter, it's a friendly letter, or a business letter, or a letter of complaint, a letter, right? There are 100 different names. Some people might call this, I've heard 2 or 3 names. Some people might call these surprising reversal essays. Paradigm shifting, right? Surprising reversals. New view essays, right? New view. So I'm going to give you a new view, and it is a persuasive mode, right? They're trying to persuade you to make something. Persuade actually means per is through or throughout, and suade comes from suadere, it's the Latin word to sweet. To make something else seem sweeter than it was before. right? So yeah, they're trying to persuade you. Okay, do you think you could come up with one or two of these on your own? Just for 3 minutes, I want you to turn to the back. I left you a blank page on the back of Benjamin Franklin. So with Benjamin Franklin. And it might be about any stereotype or any preconceived notion. So let me just throw out some seeds. What are the stereotypes about football players? Or cheerleaders? Or homeschoolers?
Male nurses.
What's that?
Male nurses.
Mormons or male nurses, right? All these preconceived notions, right? I want you to come up with, if you can, 3, just jot them down, it doesn't have to be perfect, 3 sentences about 3 surprising reversals, right? And it might start like this. You might think A, but in reality, B, right? And then you could, of course, see how you could flesh this out to a very long essay or a short essay. You might think basement offices are the pits. Well, let me tell you, basement offices aren't so bad. There are a lot of cool things down there, right? You might think that Mormons all have 10 lives, or whatever it is. You might think that. Erase that. You might say video games are awful. Minute and a half, 90 seconds left. One more minute. All right. So, anyone want to share? Let's hear one or two that think they do something clever. You want? Okay, one back here. Here we go.
You might think that homeschoolers are not socialized, but in reality they are the most social group of students because they can actively interact and communicate with people of all ages and backgrounds.
Yeah, that's right. You would challenge that stereotype, that stigma, that homeschoolers are not well socialized. Actually, they're probably better socialized than most kids because they don't go sit in a class for 50 minutes where they get maybe 1 minute of airtime. They sit in a class with 3 others or 4 others and they get tons of turns in conversation, right? And lots of social opportunities. And that it's more predictive of, better predicted by your parents' social skills than by where you go to school. And if your parents are friendly, well, your kids are going to be friendly. Your kids are going to be friendly. If your parents are talk to people at the store, your kids are going to start talking to people at the store, right? That's a far stronger predictor. Great. Okay.
I want to read mine. Okay. What a pervert, you may say. Pornography addiction is a hard subject to talk about, but compassion and understanding is what the addict in your life needs. not your disgusted response to his desperate plight.
There you go. Right. So you start with this preconceived notion of disgust. I don't even want to talk about this topic, or what do I do, or lose that guy. But he needs compassion. Excellent. Excellent examples, both of those. Okay? Can you see how these could turn into nice, useful essays? You might think Joseph Smith was a rotten, lying scum because you read about that, but let me tell you what he really was, right? And where you really can look up. Let's look at his journals. Let's look in the history of Joseph Smith. Very persuasive purposes for building a human credibility. Okay, you can do this with lots of things, right? What I want to do now is step away from this process. You've just learned how to write new view essays or surprising reversal essays. But I want to talk about process now. One of my stake presidents said, pay attention to process. And there are two main processes for teaching. One's called deductive and one's called inductive. Does anyone know what deductive is?
To determine something,
Yeah.
like a clue.
To deduce means D means down, duct means to lead, okay, having the qualities of leading down from a premise. So you might draw it like this. If I say, son, you need to write an essay, and here's how you do it, and here are the rules, I'm leading him, I'm saying essay, rules, this is how you do it, now do it, son. And the inductive would do it like this, okay? I lead in. I induce, right? I lead someone into something by basically not giving them certain scary words before they need to hear those words. When did I tell you what this was called? The surprising reversal essay. After you had, when did I tell you?
At the end.
You had already figured out all the rules using your own vocabulary, right? If I had said at the very beginning of this class, okay, class, we're going to write a surprising reversal essay today, some of you would have gone, well, and you would have been sick to your stomach, and you would have thought, how can I get out of here? Excuse me, I gotta go to the bathroom. What other classes are there? But what did we do? We said, okay, started simple. Can you tell a shoe from a shoe? Yeah, a shoe. Okay, we got shoes. Right? Can you tell? Well, your kids are smart. They're really smart, right? One more example. Time to talk. Poem by Robert Frost. Can your child write a poem like Robert Frost? Maybe, right? But if you say, I want you to be a poet, and you're going to write just like Robert Frost, and he was one of the greatest poet laureates of all time, you're going to scare him to death. Your blood pressure is going to go through it, right? But if you say, let's just try something. When a friend calls to me from the road and slows his horse to a meaning walk, I don't stand still and look around on all the hills I haven't hoed. He was a farmer in England about 1905, and shout from where I am, what is it? No, not as there's a time to talk. I thrust my hoe in the mellow ground, blade end up and 5 feet tall, and plod, I go up to the stone wall for a friendly visit. You say, wouldn't it be cool if we could just say, when my brother calls to me from the kitchen, sounds like he's had a rough day and wants to talk. I don't sit on the couch and keep playing video games and think of all those angry birds I haven't killed and shout from where I am, what is it? No, not as there's a time to talk. I thrust my paddle to the ground, buttons green and white and 2 inches tall. And I go up to the kitchen for a friendly visit and a bowl of Cheerios. They can write a poem, right? Because we haven't scared them out of it. And we showed them a little bit how to do it. And we led them into it before using the vocabulary. And said, guess what? You just wrote a poem. You just wrote an essay. You come up with a thesis statement from the essay. So what are my keys today? What are some of the takeaways you have in our last minute? Yeah.
Well, I really like the whole idea of how you explain the deductive and inductive, because a lot of people want to know what they're going to do before they do it, and they don't really actually want to know what they're going to do. So the inductive is kind of what I call the organic process.
Yeah.
I think the organic process is a little bit more inviting.
Right. You can do this with all sorts of kinds of writing. Classification and division is like 7 habits of highly effective people, right? 4 roles for the priesthood that you see Elder Rupo talking about in the priesthood session. Brethren use essay formats all the time that have names. they may not come out and say, I'm going to share a classification and division essay about this. They don't say that, right? But you can find models, and you, without scaring your child away, you can say, hey, look, isn't it cool how they have 3 types of parents, helicopters, drill sergeants, and consultants, or how they have 7 habits of highly effective people, and these are the 7 habits, or how there are 5 keys to this, or 3 keys to that. Why don't we write something and title it, 4 keys to successful homeschooling. Key number 1, right? Now you've got your organizational structure. And then you can say, and guess what? By the way, at the very end, that's called the classification and division essay. Way to go. You are so smart. You figured out what a classification. You guys are all so smart. You figured out, without me ever telling you, exactly how to write a surprising reversal essay, looking at 2 examples. You didn't have to look at 100. You had to look at 1 or 2 or 3. That's all. And they can do it. Personal narratives. I can tell you a story about going on the Colossus Lagoon and impress Aubrey Mariner, who was my 11-year-old crush. And then I got scared and chickened out at the last moment. And I said, Dad, just let me go across the ride and I'll wait on the exit sign. When it pulls up, let me just walk across the car to the other side of this roller coaster. And the car pulled up, and I thought to myself, now's my chance. And I go, and my dad grabs me, puts me in the seat, and pulls the lap bar down. Click, 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 right? And I'm crying, let me off, please let me off. The ride attendant comes down, checking the lap bar, seeing that everyone's laps are. And I say, let me off, and my dad just. And so I bury my head. I go downhill. First go down the hill, through the tulips, and start to realize I'm going to be okay. Everyone's done this before, and actually this is kind of fun, right? I can write that story and show personal narratives, right, to my children, and show them dialogue without telling them what's that called. Well, that's speech, or the narrative of he said, she said, I thought, these kinds of things. I can show them with tons of examples from the Friend magazine and say, we're going to write a story like this. What does it mean? It needs some conflict, something exciting, etc. That's kind of how you do this, okay? And I know you'll be a successful homeschool parent if you use a few keys like deductive teaching, lots of examples, imitation, and kids bless your name for it. Thank you for having a wonderful